But I am being told. I'm going to make sure that we're staying on top of it. But the question that I asked about the 2030 was strong pushback that that was not accurate. And as far as whatever is needed from EPA, whatever might need to be communicated to Congress or elsewhere inside of the executive branch,
Welcome back to Freedom Forge. If you're new here, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because this is where we break down what's really happening in Washington without the media spin, without the political sugarcoating, and without the noise. Today, we're reacting to a Senate hearing that dives into two major issues affecting everyday Americans: environmental infrastructure and government accountability. Lawmakers are questioning federal officials about the ongoing Tijuana River sewage crisis impacting Southern California, delays in critical water treatment projects, international cooperation with Mexico, and serious concerns about how federal grants are being reviewed and canceled.
Mr. Zeldin, you came out to Southern California to observe the Tijuana River crisis. I appreciate that. I had an early meeting with Commissioner Chad McIntosh, and he was hopeful that we might achieve the goal of 50 million gallons a day expansion for the South Bay treatment plant by 2027, which was an accelerated timetable, which made Californians very encouraged. But I read an article recently in the Coronado News that stated that the IBWC recently told the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board the timeline for achieving that 50 million gallons a day expansion may slip from 2027 now to 2030. The administration had also said it would achieve an additional expansion to 75 million gallons by 2031. I wanted to ask if you're aware of this slippage. Is that accurate?
It's not accurate. I'm aware of the story, and I saw it. I asked the questions before today, and they are committed to slashing that timeline. I was told rather confidently that that was not accurate when that one staffer said 2030.
So you think we can still meet the 2027 goal?
That is what I am being told. I'm going to make sure that we're staying on top of it. But the question that I asked about the 2030 was strong pushback that that was not accurate. And as far as whatever is needed from EPA, whatever might need to be communicated to Congress or elsewhere inside of the executive branch, we want to make sure that that big project is done. Now, as you're well aware, last summer we expedited the 2-year timeline to get the expansion to 35 done in 100 days. And that was great that we were able to ramp it up to 35 as quickly as we can. Getting this next part done is going to be important in order to achieve a permanent solution, a 100% solution to the Tijuana River sewage crisis.
Do you think there's an opportunity ahead of us that we can use the July 2025 MOU that you negotiated with Mexico and the Minute 333 agreement? Is there an opportunity with USMCA to get any further guarantees or put in any further safeguards to make sure that Mexico expends the resources it is committed to addressing its part of this problem?
So this is a really important point that I've been asked from the beginning. My first trip to the San Diego area as administrator was April of last year. MOU was agreed in July. The Minute was agreed this past December. Since the MOU was signed, and especially since the Minute was signed, we have been tracking every Mexico side obligation project. They have been they've been obligating the money that they said they were going to obligate on time, and they're doing the projects that they said that they were going to do on time. We are staying on top of it daily, and I have not a single blown deadline to report. So I've been asked the whole time about the stick, because the way I was communicating the entire time sounded a lot like a carrot, like we want to work with Mexico to get this resolved. And Mexico, the Sheinbaum administration, and Alicia Bárcena was communicating their interest in making it their top priority, and it was their first agreement between the Sheinbaum administration after President Trump was sworn back in. But as long as they're meeting those obligations, I don't want to communicate that we need an additional stick. However, what you are referencing as it relates to future negotiations, I am very confident that at any point, if there is a slippage, that other options will be considered.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for any effort you can make to try to keep us on track with a problem that's gone on way too long. Let me turn to a different subject matter. Administrator, when you testified before the committee last year, as well as in your written responses, you were adamant that EPA conducted a, quote, individualized review of every single one of the hundreds of grants that EPA canceled. A great many were in California, but a great many were in other states as well. You told the committee in response to Senator Whitehouse's questioning, I conducted an individual review of everything. You told House Energy and Commerce Committee, quote, I was the one who made the decision. I made the decision after doing an individual review of every grant specifically. And I sent a question for the record in which you responded, EPA terminated grants on an individualized basis. So my question is, these grant cancellations are being challenged in court. Recently, Judge Richard Gergel of the U.S. District Court in the District of South Carolina ruled that EPA likely violated the Administrative Procedures Act because EPA, quote, failed to produce a single document showing any individualized review of plaintiffs' grants. So my question is, do you stand by your testimony that you did an individualized review of all of the grants?
1,000%. And actually, on these the litigation cases, while I'm not allowed to talk about individual litigation, what I can reference is, because Senator Whitehouse pointed to it when we were here last year, there are declarations that were submitted. Now, Senator Whitehouse only pointed to one declaration of one case with, while ignoring the other declarations of that case, as well as all the other declarations of all the other cases. I would point you to the declarations submitted by career staffers who were involved in the individualized review, the other staffers of the other declarations of political appointees who were part of that process for individualized reviews. Every single grant went through an individualized review. I was reviewing a sheet that had everything individualized on it when making those decisions.
Then why was that sheet provided to the court? Why would the court find if that was the case?
There are judges every single day across this country that that reach decisions that show that.
So was this information provided to the court?
I can't speak to.
Let me just ask this
anything
last
beyond
question.
the declarations. However, I would imagine
it
was.
Will you provide that documentation to this committee showing the individualized review?
Sure, it's the document. If it's not part of what was submitted to the court, which I don't know why it would have been,
you'll submit it to the committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be surprised. I'm actually looking at something that was submitted to the court that looks pretty darn individualized.
Well, as long as you're committed to submitting it to this committee, I will yield back.
Yeah, I have it right here.
Okay, thank you.
Now let's get into it. Right from the start, the focus is on the Tijuana River crisis. And if you haven't been following this, it's a serious issue. Raw sewage flowing across the border into the United States, impacting communities, public health, and the environment. This is not some abstract policy debate. This is real-world consequences for American citizens. The senator presses the official about whether a key infrastructure project, the South Bay Treatment Plant expansion, will meet its 2027 target or slip to 2030. That's a big difference. 3 years may not sound like much in Washington, but for people dealing with pollution, contamination, and health risks, that's everything. And what do we hear? Conflicting information. Reports suggesting delays, while the official pushes back, saying that timeline slippage is not accurate and that they're being told things are on track. Now here's where I want to pause and give you my take. We've heard this before. Promises that projects are on track, assurances that everything is under control. But the American people have learned the hard way that timelines in government projects have a tendency to slip, costs have a tendency to rise, and accountability has a tendency to disappear. So when you hear, we're confident, that's not enough anymore. People want proof. They want transparency. They want results. Then the conversation shifts to something even bigger, international cooperation with Mexico. The official talks about agreements, commitments, and obligations being met. They say Mexico is doing what it promised, that deadlines are being hit, and that there's no need for stronger enforcement measures right now. And again, that sounds good. Cooperation is better than conflict. But here's the question nobody should ignore. What happens if those commitments aren't met? Because history shows that when it comes to cross-border issues, enforcement matters. You can't just rely on goodwill. You need guarantees. You need leverage. And you need a plan for when things don't go as promised. The official says they're confident other options will be considered if there's slippage. But notice what that means. It's reactive, not proactive. It's we'll deal with it if it happens, instead of we're making sure it doesn't happen. That's not the level of certainty Americans should expect on something this serious. Now the hearing takes a sharp turn into another critical issue, government accountability, specifically around federal grants. The senator brings up a court ruling where a judge found that the agency likely violated administrative procedures because it failed to produce evidence of individualized reviews for grant cancellations. That's a big deal, because the official had previously testified, clearly, repeatedly, that every single grant was reviewed individually. Not in batches, not broadly, but one by one. And now there's a federal judge essentially saying, we don't see the proof. That's where things get uncomfortable. The official doubles down, says 1,000% that individualized reviews were done, and claims there are declarations and documentation to support it. But when pressed on why that documentation wasn't provided to the court, suddenly the answers get less clear. And this is exactly the kind of moment that should concern every American. Because this is not about politics. This is about credibility. If you say you did something, and a federal court says there's no evidence of it, that's not a small discrepancy. That's a serious problem. And to his credit, the senator doesn't let it go. He asked for the documentation to be submitted to the committee, and the official agrees. Now we'll see if that actually happens. Because in Washington, promises to provide documents don't always turn into actual transparency. As a right-leaning patriot, here's my honest take. This hearing highlights two major issues that keep coming up over and over again: government competence and government accountability. On one hand, you've got a major environmental crisis that requires coordination, efficiency, and follow-through. On the other hand, you've got questions about whether agencies are even following their own procedures when handling taxpayer-funded programs. And in both cases, what you're seeing is uncertainty, conflicting information, assurances without clear evidence. That's not good enough. The American people deserve a government that doesn't just talk about results, but delivers them. A government that doesn't just claim accountability, but proves it. A government that doesn't wait for problems to get worse before taking action. Because whether it's sewage flowing across the border or billions of dollars in federal grants, the stakes are too high for guesswork. And here's the bigger picture. When trust in institutions starts to erode, it's not because of one big failure. It's because of 1,000 small moments like this, where answers don't quite add up, where transparency is lacking, where accountability feels optional. That's how confidence breaks down. So when you watch hearings like this, don't just focus on the headlines. Pay attention to the details, the timelines, the documentation, the follow-through, because that's where you see whether the system is actually working. If you believe in accountability, if you believe in transparency, and if you want more breakdowns like this that cut through the noise and get to the truth, make sure you like this video and subscribe to Freedom Forge.